night sky over the Persian Gulf cracked open like a thunderclap that refused to fade. On February 28, 2026, just after midnight local time, the horizon lit up with the glow of precision-guided munitions streaking from American carrier strike groups and Israeli F-35s. Operation Epic Fury had begun not as an act of unprovoked aggression, but as a calculated and necessary response to years of Iranian threats that had finally crossed the red line into imminent danger. In the White House Situation Room, President Donald Trump watched the live feeds with the calm resolve of a man who had promised that America would never again allow a rogue regime to hold the world hostage. "We gave them every chance," he said quietly to his national security team. "Diplomacy, sanctions, warnings. They chose missiles and proxies instead. The strikes were surgical at first. Air defenses shredded, ballistic missile silos cratered, and Revolutionary Guard command centers turned to rubble. Within hours, the heart of the regime's leadership was struck. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, architect of decades of terror funding, nuclear deception, and anti-Western rhetoric, was confirmed eliminated in a precision strike on his Tehran compound. The man who had vowed to wipe Israel off the map was gone, and with him, a pillar of the oppressive theocracy. Across the ocean, in Tel Aviv's underground command center, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu allowed himself a rare, grim nod. Israeli intelligence had tracked Khamenei's movements for months, feeding coordinates to American partners. This wasn't vengeance, it was prevention. Iran's nuclear program, hidden in fortified mountains like Fordo and Natanz, had accelerated toward breakout capability. IAEA reports leaked in late 2025 showed enough enriched uranium for multiple weapons. Proxy attacks on U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria had killed American service members. Hezbollah rockets from Lebanon, Houthi drones over the Red Sea, and IRGC plots against American diplomats. The shadow war had become too real to ignore. The Iranian response came fast and furious, as expected. Waves of ballistic missiles, Fade A-110, Shahab-3s, and newer hypersonic systems launched toward Israel. Drones swarmed U.S. Navy ships in the Gulf. Tehran aimed to overwhelm defenses, inflict pain on civilians, and prove the regime's defiance. Yet something remarkable happened. American Patriot batteries and THA-80 systems, along with Israel's multi-layered Iron Dome, David's Sling, and Arrow defense networks, intercepted over 90% of the incoming threats. In the first week alone, more than 110 Iranian drones were downed before they crossed borders. Ballistic missile barrages that once numbered in the hundreds dwindled to scattered volleys as U.S. and Israeli jets methodically hunted launchers. CENTCOM Admiral Brad Cooper reported a 90% drop in effective Iranian missile fire within days. Iran's arsenal, once boasted as unstoppable, was being dismantled piece by piece. In Tehran, chaos unfolded beneath the smoke. Power grids faltered after strikes on oil refineries and storage depots. The regime's energy sector, already strained, collapsed further, plunging neighborhoods into darkness. Civilians, long suffering under economic mismanagement and brutal repression, took to the streets in scattered protests. Whispers of uprising grew louder. The regime's propaganda machine tried to rally the nation with cries of martyrdom and resistance, but But the reality was stark. Their leadership had been decapitated, their air defenses gutted, and their missile stocks depleted to perhaps 100, 200 launchers remaining. President Trump addressed the nation from the Oval Office on March 3. "This is not a war against the Iranian people," he declared, his voice steady. "It is a war to free them from a regime that has starved them, imprisoned them, and exported terror around the world. We will not negotiate with those who chant death to America. We demand unconditional surrender, or we will continue until the threat is gone." He rejected calls for restraint from the UN and certain allies, pointing to the regime's attacks on Gulf states, drones hitting desalination plants in Bahrain, and missiles landing near civilian areas in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. Iran had widened the conflict, dragging innocents into the fire. Yet the American-led coalition showed remarkable restraint in one area: civilian casualties. Strikes avoided populated centers whenever possible. When collateral damage occurred, like the tragic strike near a school in Minab early in the campaign, the U.S. immediately launched investigations and adjusted targeting protocols. In contrast, Iranian missiles struck open areas in Israel, but also endangered their own people by launching from urban zones and using civilians as shields, a tactic CENTCOM publicly condemned, while urging Iranians to stay indoors for their safety. By March 8, the war entered its second week. Israeli jets returned to Tehran, striking IRGC aerospace headquarters and additional oil infrastructure. Smoke choked the capital's skyline. Iran's interim leadership scrambled to name a successor. Rumors swirled around Mujtaba Khamenei, but the assembly of experts operated under the constant threat of further strikes. Hezbollah fired rockets from Lebanon, but their ranks thinned as IRGC advisors fled Beirut. The axis of resistance, once Iran's proud export, cracked under pressure. In the skies over the Strait of Hormuz, U.S. Navy destroyers patrolled with unmatched precision. When Iranian speedboats approached too closely, warning shots and electronic jamming forced them to retreat. Global oil prices spiked, but American strategic reserves and increased production from allies cushioned the blow. The world watched in awe as the U.S. military, bolstered by years of investment in defense technology, demonstrated why no adversary could match its power projection. Back in Washington, ordinary Americans followed the updates with a mix of concern and quiet pride. Service members deployed to the region wrote home about the mission's clarity: protecting allies, preventing a nuclear nightmare, and standing against tyranny. One Marine sergeant stationed aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln summed it up in a letter: "We're not conquerors, we're the shield, and right now that shield is holding." As night fell again over the Gulf, another wave of strikes lit the horizon. Iran's defiance continued. Foreign Minister Araghchi boasted of readiness for a ground invasion, and President Pezeshkian vowed there would be no surrender. But the momentum had shifted irreversibly. The regime that had terrorized its neighbors for decades faced a reckoning not from hatred, but from necessity. The United States and Israel, acting in defense of freedom and security, pressed on not for conquest, but for a future in which the Iranian people could finally breathe without fear. And in that possibility, amid the smoke and fire lay the most astonishing truth of all. Sometimes, strength applied decisively can end a long nightmare rather than prolong one. The war was far from over, but the arc bent toward resolution and toward hope.